In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham, thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible. Now, here's Martin and Natalie.
Hi, welcome to the In the Last Days television program with myself, Martin Blackham. Great to have you with us. Welcome all across the UK, into Africa and into the Middle East. Great to have you with us. And if you want to know about what we're doing on the program, don't forget you can get the update, which is available at www.inthelastdays.com. Now this week, as last week, we're very excited to have David Rubin on the program. David, who was previously a mayor of the biblical city of Shiloh, or Shiloh in Hebrew, and he's written this book, The Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. And we'll be telling you on the program how you can get the book. You need to have, this is a book you need to have on your bookcase, so you'll be able to get that, and we'll be telling you how you can do that. Now, David, we were just getting into Sharia law. I was explaining about the UK, and many people may not even know this, that in England, the Muslim courts or the Sharia courts now have a legal status as tribunals, and people can appeal. In other words, if you are a Muslim and there's a divorce, you can appeal into the normal British system, but they do have, shockingly enough, legal status. And we were speaking about how slowly, with the demographics, the situation is changing in Europe and indeed in America.
Right. Well, as I was saying at the end of our last show, the Jewish community has always had its own courts to deal with certain issues such as divorce and internal communal issues. But in all of the countries that the Jews have lived for centuries of dispersion around the world, there has not been one country, even in pre-Nazi Germany, that the Jewish community has demanded to change laws to benefit its way of life. And the Jewish community has always been the most loyal of all the communities in different countries. Islam is not like that. When the Islamics speak very clearly, when the Islamic ideologues speak about what their goals are, when they speak in Arabic, and even sometimes when they speak in English in Europe, they will say very clearly that what they want is first Sharia law, the Islamic law, for the Muslim community in England and in the rest of Europe and in the United States. But ultimately what they want is for all of the country to be subject to Sharia law. That Sharia law should take over Judeo-Christian civilization. And this they say very clearly. When they speak in Arabic especially, they just come right out and say it. They have no hesitation. And anyone who spends a little time in a mosque will realize that this is what their goal is. Their goal is to take over.
Now, we were speaking about Obama, and I was saying I don't understand, coming from England, why the Jewish people of America, who presumably know about the problem of, some of them know about the problem of Islam, the terrorism in Israel, and yet they vote for a man who has Hussein in his name. And I just don't understand that, David.
Well, the Jewish community, you have to understand, the Jewish community is rather complex. We're talking about a people that has suffered persecution for 2,000 years, and very often the persecution was from the Christian world. And the Jewish community in America, the feeling in the Jewish community is more one of liberalism, of reaching out. Because we've suffered persecution, so we don't want to persecute anyone else. Because we've suffered persecution, we're going to be liberals, and we're going to try and reach out to all other people, and we're going to try to say that everyone is equal, that there is no difference between people. This has historically been the Jewish way in the Western world. In Germany, pre-Nazi Germany, the Jewish community even ceased observing Judaism, and many of the Jews in pre-Nazi Germany said that we are Germans of Mosaic persuasion. They didn't even want to say that they are Jews. So the response of much of the Jewish world has been to adopt liberalism almost as a religion, and to say, well, in order to overcome persecution, and it's not even a conscious thing, I believe. It's something that they do almost automatically, and they say, well, because difference has hurt us, so we're going to do away with difference between peoples. And it's just not a policy that has worked or that has proven to be realistic. But as a result of that knee-jerk liberalism, the Jewish community was one of the communities that was strongest in supporting Barack Obama and in getting him elected. So it's not anything that I take pride in.
Do you think there was a deception there? Because they think they were electing Martin Luther King, who had the dream. He was a Baptist minister from a Christian background, and he had this dream of the emancipation of black Americans. And then we have this man, this Barack Hussein Obama, friendly with the Palestinians. And
Barack Hussein Obama's background is anything but the background of Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached a philosophy that came from his Christian roots, from his Christian upbringing, and he was a preacher himself. And he spoke out very strongly against the trend towards Islam in the black community. And I wrote about this in my book, that the Islamic community has infiltrated in the black community in America and has gained a very strong foothold. Now, Barack Obama's background is very complex. It's important for people to understand what his background is. Okay, this man was born either in Kenya or Hawaii, depending on who you believe. I believe that he was born in Kenya, based on everything that I've heard, but it's been very hard for us to get the facts on that. What is clear is that he was raised in Indonesia, and that he went to
which is a strong Muslim country.
That's right, one of the largest, and he went to a Catholic school for some time, but he was registered as a Muslim, and both his fathers were Muslims. So he eventually moved to America with his mother, and in the United States he claims to have become a Christian. And he joined a particularly radical, left-wing radical black nationalist church with a preacher named Jeremiah Wright who preached hatred of white people, hatred of Jews, hatred of Israel, and hatred of America. Okay, he had his famous "God damn America" quote. This is who Barack Obama learned Christianity from, supposedly, but he claims to be a Christian. Now, I grew up in America, as you alluded to in one of our earlier shows, and we had a tradition in America as I was growing up as a child. There was a story about George Washington and the cherry tree, that the first president of the United States, George Washington, when he was a child, that he chopped down his father's cherry tree, and his father came to him angrily and said, "How could you chop down my cherry tree?" And well, little George responded, Father, I cannot tell a lie, I chopped down your cherry tree. Now, his honesty and the honesty of presidents throughout the centuries has been something that I certainly grew up with, and all American children grow up with. So I would like to think that President Obama was telling the truth, but frankly, I'm very skeptical. And there are too many things in his background, not just in his positions and his pandering to the Islamic world, but there are things related to his background and his education that, to me, point to a very ominous connection between President Obama and the far left in America and the Islamic world, tracing all the way to the Saudi royal family. And I think that that is very problematic as far as the way that the United States views the Islamic world in our times.
And in the book, you've got a photograph of Barack Obama bowing to, which is quite a well-known,
king.
The king of Saudi Arabia, yes, was at Buckingham Palace.
King Abdullah. Now, you know, so he went and he didn't do a traditional bow for the Queen of England, but the Saudi prince, the Saudi king, King Abdullah, President Obama nearly got down on all fours to bow down to. Now, why? Why did he bow down? Now, that is a question that was bandied about in the American media for some time. I imagine it made the British media as well. The questions that the members of the media were asking was it dignified? Was it proper protocol for President Obama to bow down to the King of Saudi Arabia? Now, it was the wrong question. The question that should have been asked was, what lies behind this story? What story lies behind this bow to the King of Saudi Arabia? And there was a little reported news item back in 2008 during the presidential campaign when Barack Obama was running for president. There was an interview with the borough president of Manhattan, Percy Sutton. Okay, he was the former borough president of Manhattan at that point, and he was interviewed on a television program in New York City. And in that interview, he revealed his connection with Barack Obama because he being a black man, the interviewer, who was also a black man, interviewed him, and he said to Percy Sutton, well, what is your connection with Barack Obama? So Percy Sutton said, well, of course, I think that he is wonderful and that he's brilliant. And I'm going to tell you my connection with Barack Obama. This is what Percy Sutton said. And he revealed that some 20 years prior, when Barack Obama was a young college student who was applying to Harvard Law School, Percy Sutton revealed that he got a phone call from Dr. Khalid al-Mansour, a radical American Muslim, who was asking him to make a phone call to Harvard University on Barack Obama's behalf to help him to get into Harvard Law School, where it was all arranged already that he was going to be the head of the Harvard Law Review. Now, this Khalid al-Mansour, who called Percy Sutton, was the principal advisor for one of the richest men in the world. This is how Percy Sutton described Khalid al-Mansour, who made this phone call to him. Now, who was that principal advisor? Who was he the principal advisor for? Who was this rich man? And the rich man who Khalid al-Mansour was the principal advisor for was Prince al-Walid bin Talal, the nephew of King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, who President Obama bowed down to. Now, why did he bow down to the Saudi king? Well, I think we're starting to understand a little bit here. Khalid al-Mansour told Percy Sutton, in that phone call that he said, we are raising money for this young man, Barack Obama. Well, why were they raising money for him, I would like to know. Were they raising money for his education, perhaps, for his college education? And why on earth would the Saudi prince be interested in raising money for the education for this young left-wing radical from Chicago named Barack Obama? Well, I think a lot of questions are raised by this. 1 year after that phone call, Barack Obama was already accepted to Harvard Law School. He was already made the head of the Harvard Law Review. And Prince Al-Walid bin Talal of Saudi Arabia, of the Saudi royal family, gave a $20 million donation to Harvard University just 1 year after Barack Obama was urged to, when they urged his acceptance into Harvard Law School. I think there are a lot of questions here, and there are ramifications which lead us all the way up to the elections of 2008, when Barack Obama, as is well known, had the greatest campaign war chest of any candidate in the history of the United States. I would like to know where some of that war chest came from. Is it possible that the Saudi royal family may have been involved, that this complex web of Islamic radicals in America leading to the Saudi royal family, could they have been involved in getting Barack Obama elected president? And is his Muslim pandering approach to foreign policy since then a result of his past, of his sordid past that people do not know about?
And hence the reason for the Islamic Tsunami, the book that we're speaking to David about today, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. One of the things we noticed, or I noticed when we were in Israel, was that when he went to Cairo, there was almost a news blackout in Israel. The seriousness of him making this pro-Muslim speech at the Cairo University. To me, it seems very dangerous that a man could be financed by Islam in such a high position. You know, it's almost unbelievable that this has all happened so quickly, and to me, almost like a great deception in America.
Well, in Israel, we have a free media, unlike most of the Muslim world, and so it was reported in the news, and we did see President Obama's speech in Cairo. But that speech in Cairo revealed where his heart lies. This president, who claimed to be a Christian, spoke about hearing the call to prayer from the mosques as being the prettiest sound on earth. This gentleman who claims to be a Christian spoke about the need to have Sharia law in the United States. He spoke about the aspects of Sharia law that need to be made the law in the United States. And in separate speeches, he has ridiculed the Bible.
And he's quoted from the Quran as well, I believe.
He quoted, in that speech, he quoted from the Quran repeatedly. He kept saying, as the Holy Quran says. There is a problem there, and there's a lot that we are not being told, those of us in the Western world. And I think that the 20% of Americans that believes that Barack Obama is a Muslim, I think we should cease ridiculing them, because obviously it comes from something. There is a lot in Barack Hussein Obama's background that Americans, that Europeans are not being told about. And I think that it's time that we bring some of these things out. And this particular interview with Percy Sutton, even though it's up on YouTube, it was buried in the media. It just was not spoken about in the media. They slandered Percy Sutton by saying Well, he was just senile at that point, and he's since passed away. But Percy Sutton was a very well-respected individual in the United States, and perhaps his age led to him slipping this out, even though he didn't want to. But I have absolutely no doubt that everything that he said is true.
And in the book, you've got a very interesting photograph of, which I've seen, of President Obama phoning the Prime Minister of Israel and saying, with his feet on the desk, showing the soles of his feet.
The soles of his shoes.
Oh, sorry, the soles of his shoes.
Why do I say that? What kind of distinction? It is a distinction because in the Islamic world, showing somebody the sole of your shoe is considered to be the greatest insult. It's something that's just not done. And that's the reason why former President Bush was attacked when at a press conference when someone threw a shoe at him, a Muslim threw a shoe at him. That was considered to be one of the worst insults. Former National Security Advisor or Secretary of State in the United States government in the Bush administration, Condoleezza Rice, was often referred to in the Islamic world as kundara, which means shoe, as a way of insulting her. So in this particular interview, this particular phone conversation, which was released by the White House, it was reported by the White House that this was a conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu, where he was preaching to Prime Minister Netanyahu about freezing all Jewish settlements, all Jewish building for Jewish families in Samaria and Judea in the West Bank. And it was released as such. And you see President Obama sitting on his desk with his shoe up on the desk, his shoes facing the camera. This was seen in Israel as being a nonverbal message to the Islamic world, an insult to Israel. A message that he is on their side, that he is going to stand with the Islamic world. There are so many things that I've written about in this book about this tendency of President Obama, in which he said to the head of NASA, the National Aeronautics Space Agency, that one of the main goals of NASA should be to reach out to the Islamic world and to make the Islamic world feel good about its accomplishments in science and math. What kind of statement is that from the President of the United States? Now, I should point out that presidents of the United States, historically, and by the way, a lot of Americans don't even know this, but certainly people in Europe, historically, the presidents of the United States have been very positive about Israel, about the United States-Israel relationship, going all the way back to President George Washington and John Quincy Adams, Abraham Lincoln, and President Harry Truman, who was the president at the time of the reestablishment of the State of Israel. All of these presidents understood the biblical connection between Israel and the United States, between Israel and Western civilization and Judeo-Christian civilization. And as long as one understands that and believes in it, then the relations between Israel and the United States are going to be good. But the free world started to turn when the far left gained power after the 60s, when the far left started to impose this policy, this philosophy of moral relativism or political correctness, which has taken over. Even when the conservatives are in power, the political correctness of the media holds sway.
And you need to get hold of this book. This book will give you a good background. Natalie and I were smiling a lot because the research is very well researched. A lot of the items you've picked up on, David, we've covered in our program before in England. One of the items I was reading about was when Fox News changed their strip, which is when the news channels have their coverage of a news event, and it said riots from Paris, Muslim riots from Paris, and then suddenly we were surprised to see it said, I think it was just riots, wasn't it? Riots from Paris. This thing about the Muslim thing was taken off.
So Fox News, which is the only one of the major networks in the United States that leans to the right, that presents a conservative viewpoint very often, Fox News as well, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal of Saudi Arabia has acquired 7%, and by this point it may even be more, but at that point he had 7% of Rudolph Murdoch's News Corporation, which owns Fox News, and when those reports were in the news of the Muslim riots, Prince Al-Walid apparently got on the phone to Rudolph Murdoch, and he complained about this, and we don't know this for a fact, of course, but it seems fairly obvious because, as you said, the news tape, which referred to Muslim riots, quickly became this generic riots in the streets of London. So
if you want to know more about that or anything we've been talking about on the program, get hold of The Islamic Tsunami by David Rubin. It's been great to be with you. Thank you for watching today, and remember, we're living in the last days.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings, or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you in 2 weeks, same time, same station, for the next program from In the Last Days.